And we are live. Let's give everybody a moment to get into the room. Let's do what we do best. You know, we like to share, and we're going to do the share thing, like and share. I have a little bit of feedback from one end. I don't know if one of you has.
That's me.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, no, it's okay. I just wanted to be sure. Well, I want to say hello and greetings to all of you out there in the network land. I am excited to be able to come back into the throne room, the place that we have created for us to be able to purge from our issues, heal from our wounds, and find rest so that we can transform into that which we have been called and created to become. And you guys all know what that is. It is royalty. I am excited to be here today because we are going to have a wonderful conversation with two of my favorite people. And I'm excited because one of those favorite people I used to bake cookies with. And so we had fun
Not
on
me.
campus. No. It wasn't our brother Ned. Ned's been with us for a while. I would have exposed all of that goodness a long time ago. But I have had the opportunity and the pleasure to be able to go to school with and to walk with this, I'll say, extra young woman who is underneath us right here down at the bottom. Her name is Susan Brazier, and we went to school together. And literally, she was like my auntie, grandma, sister, friend, mom, all in one. If my kids needed something, she was there to, as she said, sew buttons and patches on their uniforms and everything for me. We did life
Awesome.
together. And so I am excited to have her on in the throne room with us as we honor Domestic Violence Month. And this was a really important conversation for me because I am a witness to and also
Mhm.
a survivor of, an overcomer of domestic violence myself. And so I thought that it was a much needed conversation. However, the way this conversation really came about was because I made a post a couple of weeks ago about a prayer for men who were victims of domestic violence but were
Mm.
fearful to be able to come forward because of either shame or guilt or what societal standards have put out there, and the lack of response, and even some of the backlash behind the scenes from that caused me to say we need to have one of those throne room conversations. It was unfortunate that we wouldn't be able to have a male to represent that population in this conversation, but it speaks to the issues exactly of what we are facing. The fact that men, whether they're black, white, or from any denomination or any race or religion, it doesn't matter, that they all have the same feelings about not being able to freely speak about or not wanting to confront what they faced. And so I am happy to be able to open up this platform to be able to speak upon those things today. And so I'm going to hand over the mic. Y'all all know who our friend is, my brother, Ned White. But I want to hand over some time and opportunity for Susan to be able to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her own story. And we'll take it from there. And then, Ned, you can pick up that mic.
All right.
Susan, take it away.
Well, I don't want you to underestimate my age. It took me a long time to get here, and I to look this fabulous in doing
That's right, girl. That's
it.
right.
I had an undergrad degree in women's studies, which was a very, very unusual thing back in the prehistoric days, um, and then got a law degree. So, what does a feminist do when she steps out into the world of practicing law? And I ended up as a prosecutor. And the cases that everybody else dismissed, I was like, hell no. Oh, am I allowed to swear?
You can say whatever you
Okay,
want to
okay.
Whatever you.
I just want to be careful because I am an attorney. And unfortunately, hanging out with cops, actually, the cops are better than the lawyers.
I love it.
And so, anyhow, um, so I was told when I first became a prosecutor, first day on the job, I was given forms on how to dismiss the domestic violence cases. And I was like, we're not doing that. And I took the forms and I threw them in the trash. I ended up getting reprimanded, but I prosecuted the cases. And it changed how we did things in my community. Um, and so for the average for a prosecutor is 3 years before they burn out. I managed to last 17.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's probably a bit of my faith journey, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But I gained a lot of expertise, ended up being featured in a national documentary for the work that we were doing. So when Monica asked, I was like, yeah, I know something about this. And developed protocols and whatever. I am also the mother of 3 sons. And I just never wanted to be in a situation where my sons would end up being prosecuted, and so this importance of teaching respect for themselves and respect for others was critically important.
Yes.
But just as Monica said, I had a number of men who were victims, and what's really amazing is in the past 72 hours, another case has landed in my lap. And it was shocking to me. It's a stalking case. And the one of a series of victims reached out, and he described what he was going through. And stalking just absolutely strips somebody of their sense of self, their sense of well-being.
Yeah.
And it's this constant anxiety that just this gnawing anxiety that never goes away. It just consumes is this person going to show up? Where's this person going to be?
Right.
But because he was a man, the other people who were involved totally dismissed it, said, oh, well, we don't need to really worry about this. And I was like, if we change the gender on this, you would be all over this.
Yeah.
And so it took some persuasion on my part to get people to wake up that it's a crime. The fact that it's a woman against a man does not change anything.
No.
It's still a crime. And we need to set up boundaries. We need to protect people. And we need to hear people. And I think once we start doing some of that, it will make things easier. It's also a huge problem with domestic violence that people will use it as a weapon. So somebody will go into court, they'll go get a protection order. And I watched a lot of that go on. And so it gets extraordinarily complicated.
Yeah.
But you just never can go wrong by at least listening to people and trying to take them seriously.
Yeah. So that was good. There's one small piece that you didn't mention in here, and maybe you did, but I didn't. So not only are you an attorney and you deal with this type of situation, but you have also had personal experience with this, right?
Yeah.
And so it's connected to you in a different way. Do you mind sharing
No,
anything
not a
that you want
problem.
to?
No. I did really well when I married my starter husband. Tall, kind, just marvelous, a marvelous man, but serious mental health issues that I was totally unprepared and unaware of. And as time went on, it just kept spiraling in an age where we never talked about that, where somebody needed mental health and it's like sweep it under the rug, try to hold it together. And this was very much the life of a lot of families until really 2000, when counseling did not become, such a scary thing and it's more accepted. But at that point in time, I had no tools. I was told that, I was all alone and I kept trying to hold things together. And the I didn't end up with black eyes. I the violence was far more verbal, and but it was nonetheless very terrifying.
Right.
Um, he grabbed me and threw me on the ground. He choked me, stuff like that, which just sounds, oh my gosh, as I talk about it, sounds so bad. Sounds so bad. But it was enough that, I lived in this nightmare with no idea how to get out.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm doing this work. I'm doing this work day in and day out. And it was just so painful
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't a point of who the man was. It was this mental health issue. And if he had cancer, I certainly wouldn't
Would
leave.
stay. Yeah.
Right.
That's
And it
so
was,
big.
Right.
yeah.
You're
So
you're
finally I
hitting
did.
on stuff. Yeah, you're hitting on a lot of stuff. I want to give Ned, I want you to have an opportunity to jump in here before we go gun ho, but um
We're not already
Susan,
gung ho.
yeah, I mean, like, there's so much more we can add onto this. Y'all already know
Absolutely.
me, right? So there's so much, but I want to make sure that we touch upon the fact that um men are experiencing this, and there are things that are going
Yeah.
on, and that
Mhm.
we have to create this space to give voice to the fact that domestic violence doesn't just stop at a woman, right? And that there are other things other than physical things that happen that represent what domestic violence is. And so
Mhm.
I want you, Ned, to be able to join that conversation with us, to give us that male perspective.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And thank you for this format. I think that you're absolutely correct when you get that. This is a side of domestic violence that most folks don't want to talk about because, you know, how dare a man say that he's been violated or that someone is abusing him? And, and it goes back to conversations we had in the past where it gives off a portrayal of the fact that I'm weak, that, I couldn't defend myself from a woman. Um, but the reality of it is that it happens every day. It happens
Yeah.
every single day that there are men who are under the gun, literally and figuratively, when it comes to how they're treated in relationships, how mentally and spiritually they're just kind of beat up and browbeated on a regular basis. All of those contribute to that abuse that they tend to be under and that they don't talk about. Um, you know, I think like everybody else, I have, my share of stories of being in relationships. And I'm reminded as we were sitting here, reminded of a relationship I was in where I remember literally being with someone who was on a regular basis, seemed like they were always trying to provoke me to a violent place, with the desire to get me to lash out or to strike out. And, that became just so wearing on a person that you almost just feel like, helpless. Because it's like, what do I do? How do I deal with this? And so, for a lot of men, we don't talk about it. Like no one's ever known that story from me, right? Because
Yeah.
I always felt like, who do I tell that to? Like I can't pull up at the table with my boys while we're sitting around having a beer and say, man, my lady was really trying to get me to fight her today. Like, like
Yeah.
it's not the common conversation that guys would have.
Or they
And
laugh
so,
at it and make light of it,
or make
right?
light of it and
It's like,
becomes
oh,
the
she
joke of
just
the table.
tripping. Don't worry
Right.
about that. Yoke her
Right.
up a little bit,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep. And that becomes the joke of the table. And so, for a lot of men, we suppress those moments. We kind of brush them under the rug as though, it didn't happen or it had no real merit. But each time those moments happen, it's stripping a layer of us away every single time. And that's important for us to be able to have a place or a format to be able to talk about it because it does wear on you and it does affect you moving forward in your life because how we manage or not manage our relationships determine how we interact with the next relationship, regardless of whether it's with a significant other or your children or whoever. It wears away layers that sometimes can really damage anything you might have moving forward in your future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to pick up on that it's the silence.
Mm.
Whether men or women find themselves in these situations and we try to fix it on our own and we stay silent about it. And
Yeah.
in the silence, it is in the silence, in that darkness, that it's a crime will perpetuate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the more I think, Monica, what you're doing in providing this forum is absolutely fabulous. Because the more we talk about, the more people hear, as they hear Ned's story, as they hear my story, and they think, oh, that's like me.
Hmm.
That's what I see. And to realize, no, you're not crazy.
Yep.
And that there are people out there who will happily hold your story. And as you talk about your story, it becomes a very important way to come to grips with that first step that you need to be able to gain balance back into your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's funny because while I'm sitting here, I'm not even realizing to myself that I'm being triggered. So I'm sitting here and I'm doing the
You
rubbing of
just,
the hands, right? And I'm sitting here, I'm like, why
uh-oh.
do you keep doing that? And it's because I heard two things from both ends, right? So Ned, when you said that people would provoke you, you were in a relationship that would provoke you. One of the things that I experienced was I was in a state of survival of the fittest, if I can
Mm.
say it that way, right? So that I was so traumatically damaged from what happened to me previously, even as a young teenage girl, that when I got to the relationship, anything that looked volatile, I don't even care if he talked wrong. It was like that's really how it went
Right.
because
Right.
I had to feel like, no, I'm gonna get you before you get me, or like it's gonna be slaughter city in here. And
Mm.
it wasn't that I really wanted that. It was because I didn't know how else to feel respected and valued. And I felt like um, I had to protect myself because there was
Yeah.
no entity to protect me. My mom is little, right? And like my parents are
But
far
she's
away.
mighty. She's
She's
awful
Yeah, I was
mighty.
about
mighty.
to say
She's
she,
a mighty woman, okay?
nothing little about her.
Right. Yeah, but you know what, and I'm never one to tell anyone else's story. That's not my position.
Correct.
But as her daughter, I witnessed things, right? Even for
Mhm.
her. So to be able to walk through relationships, the traumatic effect that that had on myself, and then I believe on my even my children, with the way in which they saw their father and I interact. It was one that it speaks a lot to how this really impacts not just one person, but families and communities and systems
Mhm.
of people. And we have to be able to recognize that and be willing to recognize that, right? And so Susan, you had made mention of a mental health issue, and one of the things you
Mm.
said was, you know, if he had cancer, I would stay, right? And so you start to reason, and you're thinking, God, like, am I a bad person because I want to leave because he actually needs help? Like, I want to
Mm.
go and I feel like I should go, but because he's this way, and I know that there's a mental health issue, I should stay to support him, but how can I get through this? God, maybe you'll help me help myself help him, right? And there's always this imaginative hope that's there that we really can't see ourselves past, even though we know that something's not right, right?
And I think that that becomes important with these conversations because how do you know it's not right?
Mhm.
You know, it's in listening to other people and you know,
Right.
am I crazy?
Because
I must be
that
crazy.
becomes your norm, and so you don't realize that what's happening in your world is out of sorts because you don't have anything to gauge it against. And until,
Mhm.
like you said, Susan, until we start having these kind of conversations openly and honestly, most people don't know that where they are is destructive and bad behavior. Like, you just don't see it as that. You just see it. You're in, as Monica said, you're in survival mode, and you're just like, hey, this is how we get down. You get volatile with me, I'm going to retaliate, or or you retaliate, and I just become very submissive. But that mindset or that area of thinking is your norm. It's your world until someone sheds or turns the light on and says, wait a minute, wait, I'm not supposed to be like that. And until someone shows you that, or opens up, like I said, as we always say, put you in front of the mirror to see that, wait, I'm not supposed to be operating this way.
So we
Relationships aren't
take the
supposed to work like
cover
that.
off,
Take the cover
right?
off until the cover gets snatched off. You're like, wait.
It's a high what we need to be doing for our boys, for raising our sons and our daughters, is
Hmm.
a higher level of emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Hmm.
That
Wow.
this is what respect looks like. This is what love looks like. Um, if you feel uncomfortable, talk to somebody about that. There's a built within you
Hmm.
are the things for survival. And when you've got emotional, some this feeling of being uncomfortable, anxious, there's probably something about that. Talk to somebody,
Right.
help somebody help you through that. And this idea of, does this seem right?
Hmm.
Is this normal? No, this is not normal. And quite honestly, for me, it took quite a while after I got out, and I was supported by some wonderful friends, lots and lots of counseling. I spent a lot of money on
Mm.
counseling, um, but to just reset and having a sense of value of myself.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I'm seeing the Imago Dei. I am a
Mm,
beloved child of God, and I do not deserve to be treated this way. And
yes.
that piece right there can become so important in how you talk to yourself and how you allow other people to
Mm,
talk and treat you. um
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but counseling help keep those counselors in business.
And if I could share, that's probably one of the biggest issues for men, is because we don't normally lean towards counseling well, right? And so knowing that that is a venue or an avenue to healing is always a hindrance for a lot of the male species. We just, especially, and I'll speak for African American men, we don't do doctors well, and we surely don't want to go sit and talk to a psychiatrist or a counselor, because now I have to, I'm in a position where I have to deal with me. And then, in that dealing with me, I'm going to find out that there's some deficiencies or there's some issues, and I'm not the Superman I thought I was.
yes.
So those become very strong areas. And so, yeah, I agree with you, Susan. Advocating for counseling, pushing counseling, uh, marketing counseling, whatever we got to do to convince folks that it is absolutely beneficial to get that kind of support in your life to help you process the stuff that we go through.
The advantage of a counselor
Mhm.
is if they're worth their salt, they become a third party, and they listen on this level of neutrality and can help the individual to sort out the pieces so that the person himself herself can make the right decisions. It's not a point
Mhm.
of somebody telling you you shouldn't be in there, which your friends will always do.
Right.
Um, so that's just the difference. There's a difference there, and the
Right.
hope is that we're raising our kids better than we were raised.
Mm. That's the hope. And so when
Yeah.
you said we have to the emotional intelligence piece, like that's a big thing for me,
That's
and
huge.
being able to have a conversation with our kids and letting them know that this is what love looks like, this is what all this looks like. That's all well and good, but the majority of homes don't know what that looks like, and so it's hard for them to be able to
Yeah.
tell someone, especially their children. And we know that children don't just learn from listening, but they learn more from our actions and what we exhibit, right? It's hard for them to learn those things if we don't know what they are. But I'll move further back to say, to be able to have the conversations is where it begins, at least, because we can come transparently as mom and dad to the kids and say, I don't really know if this is the right way this is supposed to be done. And I'm going to do my best to try to find someone to help us with this. But
Hmm.
I know that what I want you to know is that love doesn't look like this, and that relationships should not be this way, and that what when we get with someone, this is how we should be treated and how we are feeling. It does matter, both male or female. And so we have to be willing to have those types of transparent conversations whereby we let our kids know we don't know it all and we don't have it all together and there
Yeah.
is no manuscript. And so when we don't know it all, here's what we do. And this is the process about how we go about getting to know together because we're growing together. Parents have
Hmm.
to be willing to grow with their children. and be okay with the fact that they're growing with their children, because everybody doesn't have it all together.
That's right.
That's teaching us how to live, how to adult, right?
Hmm.
It's so interesting because it kind of brings us back around. It's um when I moved in across the hall from you, and I saw all these wonderful kids, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, because my kids had just moved out for university, um, but very much committed to this idea of it takes a village,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that those children were my responsibility.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, that
Wow.
they needed something, that it was my pleasure and my honor. But it's just, I think if all of us looked at, um, if we've got something good, if we've got it, partially figured out, and we can provide a listening ear for someone else, take the time and do
Take
that.
the time. That's
From a
right.
non-judgmental perspective, because Susan, our relationship was because
Mm.
you had genuine love for my children and for me, and it wasn't from the fact that you were coming like, oh my god, she got all these kids and she got other people's kids who were in other situations, right? So she's got a whole plethora of kids trying
You
to do
truly had a
school.
village.
Yeah, trying to do school and do everything and work at the same time. I mean, I was going through divorce, I was going through it was hell, okay? And but I will say that God sent a group of individuals, Susan being included, that were true community and support for me and various capacities, who did not judge a situation but had a heart to say, I want to show you what God's love looks like, right? I
Mm.
want to be able to show you that you can do this, we can do this, and this is how we're going to do it. Sometimes Susan did stuff I didn't even know. I'm like, how did you get this fixed? And she's like, oh, I ironed this and it's on whatever. Did he get to where he was supposed to get to? I'm like, Susan, what are you talking about? And it's like, I find out after the fact. But that's what community is. So when God says we're in
Yeah.
fellowship, to be in fellowship with one another and to be in
Amen.
to commune with one another. And I often like to keep God out of the conversations that we have, but there are times where we can't negate the fact that the only reason why we get through and we live the life to the capacity that we can is because there is a higher presence of being. There is a God who loves us enough to want to see us past our hurt, our shames, our guilt, all of the negative experiences that
Hmm.
are there, and will send people, anybody. They don't have to be the same color of your skin. It has
Right.
nothing to do with race or age, right? That God will send people to be there to war with you, right? And
Yeah.
I was in battle. I mean, I was crying, going to her snot face, like, he's trying to take my kids and he's doing this, and oh my God, do you know they're gonna lock me up because and she was
Wow.
there, right?
Wow.
So I got to see the system being used from so many different capacities. So while on one hand I was hating a system because someone was utilizing a system to manipulate m- me and to be able to attack me. So domestic violence again doesn't just stop at one place, right? I
Right.
saw firsthand how a person can utilize a system to cause violence against you and your children. And so
Mm.
I also
Mm.
got to see a person in love who knew the system be able to carry out with me and war with me to get me to the other side of the system, right? So this this conversation, it just hits the tip of the iceberg about the violence that people encounter from loved ones and things that they love, right?
Yeah.
And Susan, I want to thank you again for your ability to be transparent about what you see, what you've seen, and what you know to be true about how people move through this.
Yeah.
And Ned, I want to thank you for your transparency as always. As a Black man, I have to acknowledge you because that does come with some extra stuff, being
Yeah.
willing to go about this process to say, me too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
But
you.
to understand also that it also gave me community as well.
Yeah.
So I
Reciprocal.
I got as much out of it as I got far more out than I ever contributed.
Yeah.
It's always the case.
Isn't
Yep,
it though?
it's always the case. When you look to help someone else and serve, you end up walking away with much more than you would ever imagine.
Amen.
My mama would call it, that's the point of reciprocal relationships, right?
That's what she called it.
Reciprocal relationships.
Reciprocal relationships.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Built on cookies.
Yes. Chocolate chip, y'all.
Ah,
And we had some other kinds too. What other kinds do we make?
Oh,
We had
we gonna
some
talk about cookies, really?
pecans.
That's what we gonna do?
Yeah, cause that's the love that we gotta put inside of this, cause this is a heavy conversation. So we gotta dose it off with a little sweetness.
Yeah, but it's not reciprocal because I haven't received any of these wonderful cookies, and I'm not understanding how in the long time that we've known each other, I've never known you to bake.
Yeah,
she's
there's a lot.
fabulous. She truly.
Okay.
Monica knows her way around the kitchen very well.
There's a lot of, things that people
Listen,
don't know about me, but it's
Monica's put me to work in more ways than I like to mention, and I've never been told that she cooks or bakes. I'm just understanding.
and he was in the house fixing walls, okay?
I done
From the
fix walls at
children,
the house.
from the children who, it's all good. We're gonna get there. Calvin, as always, it is an honor to be able to have you present with us and to be
My
able to
man.
see that you are very committed to being a listener and to be a participant. And so we want to thank you. If this conversation has triggered a lot of emotions inside of you from a perspective that you feel like you're heavy or being placed in a dark space, one of the things that I feel that is my responsibility as I open up these spaces is to make sure that I provide a space where I protect those people who are
Mm,
listening. And so, what we are going to do is, I will, as always, say if you are in need of anything or any follow up, I'm going to place some information on there. And he says, "Smoke is cooking." Yes, it's out. I'm going to place some information on underneath this live episode. Please feel free to reach out to us. You are never alone in this
never.
process. If you ever feel like you are having any type of suicidal ideations or fears or thoughts, please know that you are not alone. We want to be able to walk with you. That's what we were created to do, is to walk with one another and connect you with a resource that could be able to help you walk you through what you're experiencing at the moment. And so we just want to say we appreciate you. We appreciate the courage that you're taking to even stay and listen, and being willing to hear and see yourself. So as we talk
Yes.
about God, show us ourselves. God, show me, and then God to show me you. And all of the goodness that comes with God, I want to tell and make sure that everyone knows that they are never alone in their battles.
Amen. Amen.
Preach,
Susan, I want to
sister,
thank
preach.
You
you.
hear her? You hear her? Oh my gosh.
I want to thank you, Susan. Is there anything? So, if there was one thing that we could leave this conversation with today, or even I'll add to that, if there's something that communities, individuals can do, what is it that you would like to leave for us?
Mm,
Okay, thank you. The one thing that I often tell people, because what happens is there are many of us who will be on the outside, and we have that sense, that spiny sense, that something's not right with a friend.
mm,
And the friend will be, that duck paddling as hard as possible, but trying to make it look like everything's fine, and everything's not fine. And friends
Yeah,
know it's not fine. And
right.
there's this fear that if we say something, it'll ruin the friendship.
yeah,
Um,
Mm,
Sometimes it is enough to say, I will be here. You need me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will be here. And I don't care. And one of the just this idea that this non-judgmental, like Monica talked about, and that you're there. Um, Understand that, at least when I was doing all the prosecuting work, a victim would leave her or his batterer, and it would be 7 times of going back. And usually, if somebody goes back, it's like, well, I'm not going to help you again. And that's the reason why I was so successful, because I thought every time I had the chance to have a conversation with a victim, what information do you need? What can I do to make it possible for you to be able to leave? And if you have to go back, I trust your judgment, because sometimes victims are much safer back than they are out, because we know that the lethality goes up by 70% within the hours after somebody decides to leave.
Yes.
And so making that decision to go back sometimes is the most prudent thing. But just saying, my door is always open. If you need me, I will be here, and I will never say I told you so. Wow. And what can I do to help you? What impediments are there, and what can we do to alleviate those impediments? And each time to make it more feasible, and to honor the person with the nightmare, because I'm going to tell you, you have no idea. And to sit back and say, well, if it were me, you have just played into the hand of the batterer, and you have just you in that stance, you have facilitated this crime.
Yeah.
So the thing is, say something. If nothing else, say, I think you're in a bad place. I'm not judging you, but I am here for you.
Yeah.
And that piece can be the most valuable thing you can ever do to help save somebody's life, whether it be their emotional life or actually their physical life. So there, you asked me. I've given this speech before.
That was so good, Susan. That just brought so many things back to me, even all the way down to, the experiences of, it's safer for me to go back than for me to be out. My mom almost lost her life from a situation like that, right?
Wow.
I remember that. So that's serious. Ned, from the man, that man perspective, is there anything that you want to lead the brothers?
Susan's comments were universal.
Yeah.
And I think they apply. I think one of the things that, if anything else I can add to that, particularly from the male's perspective, is to step out of the place of silence. Don't stay in that place. At the end of the day, whether, you feel like you've got it all out of your system or not, you've at least opened the door of communication with someone that could possibly help you, be an ear for you, a support system. And so please don't suffer in silence.
Don't think you're crazy. You're not.
Amen.
Oh, you might be, but
you might be a little bit, but not in that area.
That's fixable.
That's right.
Right.
We can do something about that.
A little crazy, but at least in that area, get the support you need. So please do not suffer in silence.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in and for joining us. I want to give another special shout out to our guest, Susan, who just really came in and did her wonderful thing that I knew she would. And so I'm so glad that I connected with her. And as always, we ask that you guys go ahead and like and share. We know that you've been chosen just for us. So we want you to subscribe and to follow. We are not stingy. Share the wealth. The more we give, the more we receive, right? And so please share the information that's here. We want to be able to hear from you. We've created this space just for you guys. And as always, join us next Wednesday at 5 p.m. in the throne room with our very own brother Ned, as he leads and hosts Barbershop Conversation. If you missed the last week, it was a phenomenal time with him and his son, and I think that you guys are going to enjoy the next series that is coming up. Yeah, take that deep breath.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because next week, just to give a snapshot, we're going to continue in this conversation around Black men and parenting. And so I have some phenomenal guests coming on next week that are going to add another level of insight and what it means to be a dad, in and outside of the home, particularly raising young men. And so I'm excited about what we're doing in the barbershop conversations. And we're going to continue, as I've always said, we're going to continue to do this journey together, and we're going to walk together, and we're going to figure it out together, and we're going to cry together if need be, but
That's
we're going
right.
to definitely get through it together. So I'm excited about what we're doing over in the barbershop with the brothers.
Yeah. And so we will kick off next week with Barbershop Conversations. And then the new series for Throne Room will be Mama Doesn't Always Know Best, as we talk about moms and their parenting styles and the way that we do things. And so I'm excited to be able to have an opportunity to share with some amazing and phenomenal people during that time. And so we want to see you here at 5 o'clock. We look
Yes.
forward to our time together, and this will also be our last week for Words to Aspire to Higher, as we focused on positive mental attitude and mindset for this month. But if you have any other questions or needs, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm more than happy to connect with you on any personal development or professional development levels. We will
Absolutely.
see you guys next week in the throne room. Talk to you guys later.
Take care. Love you guys.
Thank
Bye.
you for joining
Thank
us.
you.